Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this live stream on RJ Santa for Living with Purpose. And we're talking about liars, people that make excuses versus personal responsibility. And you can see the title on this live stream. I'm actually going to put it in the chat for you guys so you guys can look at it because I think it's important. I think it's very important.
17 notifications. YouTube. Group. Now. Vatican News. English. Pope to Spain's Parliament. A Justice.
So there you go. So it's it's a, it's a good little title. The truth about purpose, liars, excuses, and personal responsibility. The truth about liars, excuses, and personal responsibility. I think that's a neat little title, don't y'all? I think that's a neat title. I remember when I was in school, I was in middle school and high school, and I always had this one teacher. And she was my uh, what we referred to as a vision instructor, or her professional title was teacher. Uh, it was actually itinerant teacher of the visually impaired.
18 notifications.
So she would go to different schools
Meeting with bishops of Spain.
and she would make sure that people had what they needed, like, if they needed something magnified or if they needed something in braille or whatever, she was there. Well, every time I would try to say something that she felt was an excuse, she would say, "No excuse. No excuse. There's no excuse." And she would constantly say that to me. No excuse. RJ, that is not an excuse. I did not turn in a homework assignment. No excuse. I did not do an assignment. No excuse. I mean, if something did actually happen to where I had trouble with an assignment, she was there to help me out. Or like if technology wasn't working the way it should, then she herself would write a note and say, "Hey, RJ's having problems with his whatever, RJ's having problems with a printer, or RJ's having problems with this. We will get you the assignment. Um, it will be late. If, like, for example, one time my printer at home wasn't working, and my mom wrote my uh, itinerant vision teacher a letter and told her what the problem was. And she actually accommodated me and let me use her printer in the classroom to print out my assignment. Now, that was not an excuse. That was actually a valid reason. Okay? But an excuse, when I say liars, excuses, and personal responsibility, I'm talking about the person that chronically makes excuses. Well, if this hadn't happened, then this wouldn't have happened. And it's the other guy's fault that I'm not growing on YouTube. I'm being bullied. I'm being this. I'm being that. And always making excuses, always playing the victim. Thereby, a person that is actually getting bullied isn't listened to because you have the excuse maker that's taken up all the time. And see, if you want to live with purpose, you must maintain your integrity. You must maintain your integrity. That's the only way you're going to live with purpose. Because if you're not willing to maintain your integrity, then the whole living with purpose slogan is just that. It's a slogan. If you're here listening to this channel and it's just a slogan to you and it's not affecting how you deal with your life as an individual, then that's all this is. It's just a channel you watch. But if you're taking what you're learning and you're saying, look, I'm going to apply this to my own life. I mean, we've all done it. We've all made excuses for things during our lives, haven't we? We've all tried to get out of something by making some excuse. Oh, I didn't pay my light bill because, or I didn't pay my phone bill because. Well, okay, whose fault is that? You knew it was due on a particular day, and yet you didn't pay it, right? It's your responsibility. I mean, granted, people have things come up and and that are out of their control, but still, at the same time, you still have to fulfill your obligations. I remember one time when I was in seminary, I had a professor that taught the Gospel of Matthew. And he taught us that you should pay your bills either before they are due or on the day they are due, not after. Excuse me. My late mother had a practice of she would, and this is what she would do. She would budget her money in such a way to where she knew what bills she had to pay up front. And she would pay them sometimes a month in advance, 2 months in advance if she had the money for it. Like that's how she would do it. Like if she knew she had to pay the electric bill or something like that, the phone bill or something like that, she would already have the money set aside so she could pay that bill. Now that's just a guesstimate. I mean, I'm sure she paid like a month. I wouldn't say 2 months, but I'm sure if she had the money, she could. But the point I'm trying to make is this: Mom always knew when she had to pay her bills, and she always had a way of getting them paid before they were due. I don't ever remember her paying a bill after the due date. She always tried to get them paid before they were due. And Mom was very particular about how she spent her money. Very particular about that. So not only have we looked at, you know, excuse makers not living with purpose, but let's look at liars. Now, here's my thing about a little white lie. A lie is a lie, period. And liars, people that lie, that knowingly lie, that's not living with purpose. That is not living with purpose. Now, have you ever been in a situation where person A tells you something, and then you go to person B because you're person C? Okay, so you go to person B and you tell person B what person A told you. And then you find out from person D that what person A told you was nothing more than a big fat lie. So what would you do? Would you go to person B and say, hey, do you remember what I told you that person A told me? Well, I found out that it was untrue and I wanted to clear the air. I wanted to make sure that I gave you the correct information, or the information I got was incorrect. Now, that's what a truthful person would do. They would go and they would try to correct everything and say, okay, this, I did, I told you this, it was inaccurate, and or I was deceived, and I want to let you know that, and I know the truth now. Because when you do that, when you go and you tell somebody, hey, this is what actually happened. See, and that's the thing. A lot of times, what some people will do, and I think we've all done this, is we will not tell person B. What happened? And that's called omission. And that makes you more of a liar than the original liar that told you the lie. It makes you just as guilty as person A who lied to you. Because you didn't go and tell the person the truth and make it right. So that's what I believe. I believe that you should, if someone tells you something and then you find out it's a lie and you've told that to another person, you go to that other person and you say, hey, this is what I was told. It's turned out that it is not true. Here's the truth. If you were able to find out the truth, of course. If you weren't able to find out anything, and then, you know, and the person comes to you and says, hey, we were lied to, or hey, you were lied to, then you should accept that and be like, okay, well, I'm sorry for telling you that. But I think that's the thing. I think you have to be honest and be truthful. But have you ever met a person and they tell you something and you just know that they are obviously lying? You know they're lying. They're lying because you can hear it in their voice, you can see it in their face. You know they're lying. You know they're not being truthful. Or this has happened to me too. But have you ever noticed when you tell a lie, you just get that feeling like, oh crap, I should not be doing this. I shouldn't be saying this to this person. I shouldn't be doing this. I remember one time I told a lie, and it was a pretty big lie. This was back in 2010. And it was I had um, I had told a lie to my sister about going to church at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Um, and I didn't tell her the whole story. And when she found out the truth, oh my gosh, it was awful. It was bad. But something always stood out to me from that. It was something she said. And she said, what kind of example are you setting for my kids? Because they were small at the time. They were like, I think Ashley was 7. Because she's the oldest out of all of them. And then you had Carol and Zach. But And I knew better. I knew better than to do that. But I'll never forget when she said that, when she said, "What kind of example are you setting for my children? You're their uncle. They are going to be looking up to you." And it was just like somebody had just walked up and boom, just punched me in the gut because I knew that my sister was correct. I knew she was right. I knew she was right. And since that day, I have always tried my best to be honest. I've always tried my best to be honest and to not lie because I don't want to, yeah, I don't ever want to face that again. And you know, the bad thing about that was I was in seminary. I was going for my doctorate degree. I knew better. I knew better. And yet I did that. But you know something? I learned from it. And now those kids, like they are, all of them are honest, upright kids because she raised them to be honest. And that's one thing that my sister and brother-in-law maintained is when they were growing up, because we all lived together, when they were growing up, it was don't lie, don't lie, don't lie. If you lie, this is what's going to happen. Here are the consequences if you lie. And now that I'm 47 years old, I just like, I was, I want to say 30, 31 at the time. This was, but now that I'm 47, I just had my birthday. Now that I'm 47, I just find that I just want to be truthful. I want to always try to tell the truth because I think that's important. So, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope that this has helped